Hello and welcome to another Touchy Gooners podcast. It's your boy Dankoogs on hosting duty. Today we got a full house. I'm joined by my good friend and my namesake German. How you doing?
What's happening, bro? Are you good?
Yeah, I hope you're ready to scrap in them trenches, man. You got some fighting to do, man.
Hey, what do you mean by that, my bro? What's going on?
we got we got Sean as well. How you doing, Sean?
Yes, brother. All good, man.
All good, all good. And we've got Dr. Leroy. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I mean, obviously, I heard my ops are on the stage, so I thought I can't not be here. I mean, all I come on here is to shoot at ops and to get my agendas off. So,
fair play, man. Fair play. There's plenty of time for that today. So, before we get into it, minor housekeeping. As usual, if whatever platform you are listening on, make sure you leave that 5-star review. Make sure you drop us a follow on the socials, Touchy Gooners on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of that good stuff. If you haven't yet, you're missing out. Haven't yet signed up to Patreon, you're missing out. Myself and Lewis did a player match ratings pod straight after the Chelsea game. Went into some of the detail on that match, the 2-2 draw at Stamford Bridge. And we do all of these episodes ad-free. So if you do not fancy listening to another episode, another advert for Bird Dogs, and you're not quite feeling, that advert, you don't really fancy buying them Bird Dogs, you can hear this ad-free on the Patreon. They're from as little as £3 a month. We've got plenty of other collaborations planned that we're going to be putting out on there in the coming months, so you don't want to miss out on that. But let's get into it, right? And we played yesterday. We played on Saturday as well since our last main episode. I'm going to start with the Saturday match before we get into the 2-1 win away to Sevilla. But Dr. Lee, since you've not been on here in a little while, I'll start with you. And this is probably a bit of a talking point. There's been lots of listeners' questions this week around this. So that Chelsea game, a lot of people have said, not one of our best performances, our worst performance of the season. You know, whether you think it was a good result, given the consequences, given the context of the game and how that game played out. But what are your main sort of thoughts coming out of that game when I ask you about our midfield and how you think our midfield is doing this season?
So overall, I thought it was a good result based on the game and the way it went, because we were 2-0 down. To come back to 2-2, you can never complain. My issue was, which I was also saying during the game when I was speaking to you guys, is I don't think Chelsea were good. I think we were really poor, but I don't think Chelsea particularly good. Chelsea played quite a simple mid-block, and I was so disappointed the fact that we couldn't find a way to play through that in any way. And we really, really struggled. I know the conditions were bad, but we really, really struggled to play through it. I think that's symptomatic of an issue that we have in midfield, which has been plaguing us the whole season. So when we build up, I still feel that our wide players are still getting the ball with decent enough regularity. Don't get me wrong; they're blocking the pass into Odegaard from the wing positions and things like that. But my issue is we're not finding our way into the half spaces, which is where we were really dangerous last season and really cooking last season with any kind of regularity. There could be several different reasons for that. Number one could be how teams are playing us. And maybe teams have not figured us out as such, but are playing us differently. They're showing us a little bit more respect. They know where we're dangerous, and they're trying to cut off where we're dangerous. But I do think a big part of that is the change in attributes and the change in quality of who is in build-up. So we look at Rice. Rice has been fantastic for us. There is no way around it. He's been really, really good. But he hasn't got the same kind of ability to find our eights or our creative players in the half space. And I think that shows because he does most of the passes Rice plays are outside of the opponent's shape. I think that's an issue. Jorginho has played significant minutes this season, and for someone who's supposedly great technically, I don't see it. I don't think he plays quick enough, and I don't think he has the ability to find these man in half spaces either. And I don't think either of them take the risks that are necessary, even though it might not be what Arteta wants, as probably German and Seun will come in and say. But I feel that is the primary issue, and that is why we are not as potent in attack as we were last season. So that's why I don't think we're getting as many chances. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that you have to play Thomas Partey. Thomas Partey is a unicorn player. There's not too many Thomas Parteys around. But a big part of that is when you're playing someone like Havertz in the 8, for example, he vacates the space early. And so whereas Xhaka was running, making late runs, Havertz vacates the space early. And it seems like we're playing a man down in build-up. And he's not helping to build up at all. He's not involved. That's an issue for me. And I feel that if we're going to play Rice, we need a different type of left 8 who is going to support the midfield a little bit more and help in ball progression, because our superpower, which made us so good last season, which had us top of the table all season, is that we, in my opinion, which I said last season, were the best team bar none, including City, in build-up, by far. And I feel that we've lost that. We've gone from an elite build-up team to pretty okay, mediocre, probably just above average. And without that eliteness, that's our superpower's gone. So games are coming tight again. We're not creating the same chances that we used to. I think we either need to get an elite build-up again, or we need to evolve in a way that allows us to create chances and attack that's elite, that is not involving building up in that way. So something's got to change. The attack doesn't look right at the moment, but I feel that the midfield is the main difference between last season and this season. Sorry, that's a ramble, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to unpick there, really, from everything that you said. So I'll invite Seun or German Dan, either one of you, if you have any opposing thoughts to what Dr. Leroy said, because I've got a few myself. But German, I've seen you gone off mute, so I'll let you in.
Yeah, I think Leroy's got some. I think the concerns he's got. I think of they're not out of nothing. There's definitely some trend towards our build up being slower. Our build up, being different. The roles players play in our build up being different. Also, our build up, being different from game to game. I think there's certain aspects that we do in some games that we don't do in other games, and I think this is all part of this evolution that Arteta is looking to do, which is basically making us harder to beat, which is making us, controlling games more and over longer periods. And I think the football last year was sensational. We played some amazing football, and it did have us top of the table for a long period of time. We came up short because of the squad depth, and I think we didn't have enough tactical layers. I think what we now have is more tactical layers and more squad depth. And you'd think, surely we can just play the same football again or try and replicate the same football to, achieve the same results. But I think there's external factors that have changed. Teams don't underestimate us to the same degree that they did last year. I think teams play us completely differently than last year. I think if you're looking at Tottenham, for example, it's a good example in terms of how teams are playing them this year, how they played us last year. They're acknowledging they're a good team, but they think they can get something. And at some point that's going to wear off, and they're gonna face different challenges. And those challenges we actually faced later on in the season, which made the games in the second half of the season, a lot of them a lot closer than in the first half. In the first half, we were blown teams away. And I think momentum and also quality, and in a lot of games, it was also like the mentality of the team carried us to winning games. And I think Arteta probably looked at that and thought, that's not sustainable. I'm going to try or look for a more sustainable way of winning football matches consistently over 38 games. Because I can think of the Villa game. I can think of that Bournemouth game. I can think of a couple other games where it was just like the mentality of the team really carried us to winning those matches. And the games are more boring now for a lot of parts. But I think that's by design. And I look at the Sevilla game and, outside of the Chelsea game, which I agree was a poor performance from us in and out of possession, actually. Probably the poorest I've seen us in realistically like 18 months. But But I think the Sevilla game was exactly what Arteta wanted. He wanted slower ball progression, I think, in order to, manage the momentum of the game. He wanted not going vertical as often or quickly, because going vertical, increases the likelihood of losing or being dispossessed for the players that are receiving in those areas. And I think that's by design. And it's an evolution that we're seeing. And I think the only way people will get on board with this evolution that Arteta is implementing is if this is going to result into not just wins, because we can win playing the way we played last year. It has to result in like trophies, it has to result in deep runs into the cup competitions. And that's the only way I think people will be okay with it. Because the football last year was better. So yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think one of the key points is the opposition for me in how they're setting up against us, and in terms of how we're able to exploit their setups. Because I think this season, I can't remember how many weeks ago it was, that statistic, but I think I saw that Arsenal were playing the deepest blocks in all of Europe. So, teams are, sort of fully respecting us. But then I also saw that Arsenal still have, which obviously goes hand in hand with that, have the most territory in these games, right? We've seen field tilt, graphs and scatter graphs and stuff like that being thrown around. So, when I'm talking about, when we're talking about build up, I can see that it's different, but for me, we're still able to play the game in the final third of a lot of these teams, right? And even against Chelsea, where that wasn't necessarily a good performance, when you see that second half, when we were at 2-0 down, and I think game state does make a difference. You're 2-0 up at home. You're not necessarily going to come out and really attack, but you've seen how high Gabriel was in that game, how high Saliba was playing in that game. And I say, actually, is our build-up really that bad if we are able to force teams back to this degree, right? I think a part of that is teams respecting you, but then when teams respect you, you also have to play up to that respect and carry out, your own instructions. And I personally think we still progress the ball up the pitch very, very well. It might not necessarily be through the center of the pitch, but I also think teams are really, really blocking the center of the pitch. And one of the things that I'm really noticing is our two, I say, central players, or maybe even three central players, because if you look at it, Eddie has started the majority of the games this season. I think the three players that we played in number 9 and the 2 8s that occupy those central channels, I think Odegaard has been in and out of form. I think he's had some good games. I think he's had some mixed games. And I think he's had some really poor games in recent weeks. The left 8, no matter who has played there, it's been Havertz in and out of games. It's been Vieira in and out of games, having moments here and there. Or it's been Smith Rowe, who hasn't really started any games there, but he's come off the bench and not really flattered to deceive. And I look at all three of those players who played in that left 8. I think all three of them, you describe them as really low touch, more, I think Vieira, not necessarily an off the ball player, but Havertz and ESR, I think mainly off the ball players. Vieira, more a moments guy. He can deliver a final pass, but how involved is he in general play? Not really. All three of them, I would say, are low-touch players. Odegaard, if he's not on it, and then Eddie, who I think the first 3 games was pretty good in his play, getting chances, making chances for himself, getting on the end of things. But since that first international break has really been, quite off the boil. And I'm looking at those 3 guys in particular. When those 3 positions, you can't get players playing well, you can't get players keeping the ball, you can't get players who are operating in that zone effectively. That is going to, really affect your central progression as well. That if you pass the ball to Havertz's feet, it comes straight back. If you pass it to Vieira, he's getting barged off the ball. If you pass it to Odegaard, he tries something, doesn't quite come off. You pass it to Eddie, it's bouncing off his shins. You're not going to get any central progression there either. So I have to look at the personnel and the way those personnel have been performing as probably the main issue for me, rather than, sort of our build-up's not there, our build-up's this, or do you know what I mean? Because for me, those guys are actually getting opportunities in that zone, and it's not sticking.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that you're looking at personnel, and you also have to look at the context of who's actually been available. This guy Partey not been available for the first quarter, you could say, really. We know he's the most vertical player in this football team, in terms of what is passing. So he's been missing. He's not been playing. Zinchenko, I think, has had decent games, but as you said, the recipients in those zones have not been productive. Like, they just have not been productive. Gabriel Jesus is another recipient, and that is very good on the half turn and receiving the deep ball, coming and turn and play, making things happen. He's been injured for I would say majority of the games we played so far. Actually, he's only recently come back in, and he started playing out wide when he came back in. Martinelli also, so I think there's a lot of personnel sort of changes that have affected the synergy, the energy of the team. And I think we should try and monitor it for the next 5 to 6 games, where I think everyone is now fit apart from Timber. So let's see how it goes there, and if the build up is more potent. But then there's also poor performances. I think individually, I think there's been quite a few players that just have not been hitting the levels right now, and this is not just Odegaard, Havertz, and Eddie, as you mentioned. I also think when Trossard has played, his end product has been good, but his overall game is leaving a lot to be desired. And I think he's one of the players that actually the end product is saving him from people scrutinizing his performances. He scored a great finish the last game as well in the league, and then he scored a great goal, I think, against PSV, and I think he scored another goal, but. I've not really seen much in game in play from him. So, and Vieira, I think, was good in this cameo against Fulham, but then the game after, was it Everton? It was a game after that he had, and he started, and I felt like, this is your opportunity. You've not really taken this opportunity for the manager to think like, I need to play this guy, and he's not really been in the team since. So, it's all a combination of those things, I think. Newcastle, hold that.
That's what 1-0 Dortmund, yeah. So Sean, let me bring you in. I'll let you add anything that you want to on that sort of midfield central progression topic as well. But I want to bring us further back to the number one spot, the guy that's playing between the sticks as well, and just give me your general opinion about this Raya Ramsdale discussion, because for me, I can't lie, it's looking kind of spooky.
Yeah, I thought all you guys made really good points on the issues we've had with build up this season, and I think everyone's point is valid. It's funny, I tweeted just before the pod, I was looking at some numbers from last year, and I think Partey to Odegaard was one of the biggest passing networks we had in the team. Again, it comes back to the point about verticality, and we've definitely missed that to an extent this season. I also think there is a concerted effort to, last season we were very rock and roll, right? We played at 100 miles an hour, but, when you're hoping to have maybe a 50, 60 game season, that can't be sustainable. You can't play at that pace and that tempo all the time. So I think the combination of trying to slow down a bit, teams, having the lowest, deepest block against us, so that there's a numerous level of factors. But I do think the point Leroy made about having more centrality is important, because it's key to the quality of chances that you can create. Because whilst we've dominated the field tilt, the territory, a lot of that stuff has been in our favour. I think the quality of chances and the lack of incision we've had in the final third could be improved by having more access to that zone 14 as well, and that might be a profile issue. We've spoken about, I think Rice for me has been bought as the long-term 6, but we're being objective. I think he's a fantastic ball winner, great engine, but he probably doesn't see the pass or see that pass into zone 14 as quickly as a Partey does, which has its pluses and its negatives, right, in terms of control, but maybe not finding that free man as quickly as possible. I also just think we might need some better technicians in zone 14 generally, in my opinion. So this is what I'd like to see, and this is maybe a recruitment issue in the summer, but an 8, like a Frankie de Jong, a Pedri, Locatelli, Gundogan, that sort of type, Bruno G. I really, really think that's a type we need Just more of an actual midfielder who can do a lot of the midfielding stuff, both offensively and defensively. So it'd be an area I'd like to see going forward. But your point on our goalkeepers, I'll be honest here, I don't have a horse in this race. I said this from the very start. For me, the best keeper should play. And we bought Raya on the pretense that he was better, he was an upgrade, and that might prove to be the case long term, right? But if I'm being honest, and based on what I've seen so far, nothing this keeper has done has filled me with confidence, apart from maybe the claims from crosses and probably a higher starting position when we're playing, right? But the kicking, which has been madly lauded, has not impressed me. He's looked jittery. I know me and you, Kuz, we've always had concerns about 6-foot goalkeepers. I don't like goalkeepers that are short, and so it's something to wait and see. I think this is Arteta's guy, and he will continue with it. But if we're to base it off what Arteta said right now, it's competition and a meritocracy. Based on what I've seen so far, I think Ramsdale should come back in. And this is me, who's not even a massive fan of Ramsdale. But if that's how we're playing it, and we're saying it's a competition between two number ones, then I think Ramsdale deserves to come back in. But I don't think that will happen, because I think Arteta built it as a competition for the number one spot. But I don't think he generally believes it himself. Like, Raya's his person. He's adapting more to his game model, so to speak. So I think he'll persist with it. But yeah, man, I think this is messy. It's a very messy situation at the moment. And until Raya fills me with confidence, I think this might be something that rumbles on personally.
Yeah, I think Arteta hasn't necessarily helped himself with the comments that he's been making, because I don't know, maybe I need to go check what he said when Ramsdale came in, and when what Emery might have said when Leno came in for Czech. But for me, I see all of those situations, and these situations I think have always happened in that goalkeeping department, right? We saw it with Joe Hart and Claudio Bravo, I think, was one. It's almost, really quite similar to this situation, right? Where I think Joe Hart was the established number one keeper for Man City. Pep came in and said, yeah, this guy's kicking is not it for me. I'm going to bring in Claudio Bravo. And Claudio Bravo, he stank, right, when he came. He was really bad for Man City, but he played the games because he could do more of what Pep wanted his goalkeeper to be able to do on the ball. And then when the time came for Ederson to come in, he went and spent £36 million or whatever it was on Ederson. And I see it the same as when we brought Leno in for Petr Cech. Emery wanted to do more of this playing out the back with more short passing. We saw what Cech was on with that, almost scoring own goals under no pressure and stuff. He said, yeah, this can't run. Leno came in, not really the hoo-ha about it. Ramsdale came in again because I think Arteta said, this guy can't really do what I need from him on the ball. Ramsdale is better on the ball than Leno. Ramsdale came in, new number one, Leno got shipped. And I think it's a very similar situation. Raya is able to do more of what Arteta wants to do on the ball. Therefore, that's why he's been brought in. All of this, and I think the issue is now the fact that people have gotten carried away with this whole rotation, which I don't think Arteta has ever said it was going to be rotation. He said competition. And because of this competition thing, you're now seeing a guy who is... For me, I don't think he's playing well. I think we're getting some glimpses of what playing well might look like from David Raya. There are some nice passes in there. I think every single game we've seen some nice passes. I do think his high claims are really noticeable and do make a difference. I do think that is something that Ramsdale could definitely do a lot more of. I don't think there's been many opportunities for Raya to sweep. I don't think his kicking has been particularly that convincing. And he's really sort of struggling with some of those short passes, short central passes. We've seen the error against Cole Palmer. We see the error against Julian Alvarez against Man City. I think some of his passes, as Dr. Leroy said, have been underhit going out to the fullback. We saw another underhit pass, similarly trying to clip out to Ben White. We've seen him pass the ball to Sevilla players and whatnot. We're seeing him do flying Superman punches, almost scoring own goals in the 93rd minute. We're seeing him get chipped from the side of the box by Mikhailo Mudryk. So when I'm watching this guy, I get it, and I think he's Arteta's guy, so he probably needs to stay in the goal, but he really needs to rise in it, because I think what we're seeing from him is very, very spooky. It's very spooky. And yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about, putting maybe some of these fundamentals there now, if it starts costing us points in a year that I think we've got a good chance of, winning a big trophy, So if we come to April, May, Raya still playing like this, you need to go pragmatic, and my man is passing the ball to strikers on the edge of our box. I'm gonna be shouting. That's gonna give me heart. You see what Ramsdale's dad, when he's in the stadium, he's like, "Oh, he's doing my effing heart in." Yeah, that's what I'm gonna be like watching this guy kick. And I don't want to be in a situation like that, Boy, so and Dr. Leroy, I'll let you in on this conversation as well, because we've been chatting about this in the group.
No, you've covered it well. Like, for me, like I said at the beginning, I don't really have a horse in a race. I'm not like a keeper analyst. I'm not an expert with keepers. And I feel that the reason keepers are difficult is it's so different from out on the pitch that we don't know the minutiae, we don't know the fine details. I mean, we've all played football. So when you're talking about outfield players, it's a lot easier to assess because it's sort of a bit more relatable. But when it comes to Raya, it's just that, I mean, in the goalkeeper position, the key thing for me is the absence of mistakes. Because I do not care what you do for 89 minutes and 50 seconds. If you throw one in your net in a low scoring sport, I don't care what the fuck you've done before that. I'm sorry. That's a bad game. You could have been amazing before that. It's a bad game. And it's similar to the centre-back position. The absence of mistakes is absolutely key. So we are seeing some good things from Raya, some pretty decent things. I think we're doing overtime. But when I look at the mistakes he's making, he's very lucky they haven't actually cost us goals, because they very easily could cost us goals. And then I feel that the conversation changes in the public sphere. But I don't think we should be outcome biased, and we should be looking at what he's actually doing, because all of these mistakes could be costing us goals in every single game. Now, Ramsdale has had shaky moments, and many of them, like we've seen it, we've all seen it. But I don't think Ramsdale was having moments at the regularity that Raya is now. And my massive concern here is, it looks like the mistakes Raya is making is out of nerves. It doesn't look like it's out of ability, if that makes sense. And a lot of being a goalkeeper, from what we all hear, is mental. And if he doesn't have the stones, or the big ones, word of Arteta, that he can play at this level and show out and not get nervous and not make mistakes, then, boy, I'm not really feeling that. And I think we should bring back Ramsdale, because one thing about Ramsdale, yes, he might have ADHD, which we know, but which is fine. But there is no way you can tell me that guy ain't got cojones. There's no way you can tell me that guy didn't come in and rise it, and he played to the level. He feels like I belong here. I deserve to be here. So I think we need a bigger sample size. We need to give Raya a little bit more time. I think that's true. But if he doesn't show what we need to see, I need to see Arteta be just as ruthless, and not this selective ruthless as he does, where he's ruthless is one person, but and then he's still here for a good time. Ruthless with Ramsdale, but Raya is making mad allowances for. I need him to be a fair manager, and it be a meritocracy. And I think Ramsdale needs to come back in, because one first thing I'll say on it, again, I don't know too much about keepers, but just from the eye test, for me, what it looks like is Ramsdale is the more talented keeper for me. Ramsdale is he's going to make exceptional saves, and over time, in terms of more athletic, a little bit taller, etc. Yes, he may have some issues he needs to iron out in his game, but he is a little bit younger. But in terms of raw talent as a goalkeeper, for me, Aaron Ramsdale looks more talented. Raya looks maybe potentially more polished, and he looks more like the finished article. But I personally don't want to see us, if he doesn't have the mindset and he keeps making mistakes and doesn't have I'm a big man to play at this level. I don't want us to throw away what I think is probably a very talented keeper with a few flaws for Raya, unless we're going to get a significant amount of money.
Yeah, fair play. German, I see you shaking your head at a couple points there. So, yeah, I'm going to let you retort.
Hey, you might know me.
Hey,
Hey, you
what?
might know me. I love this.
Touchy Gooners, yeah. We're doing a charity boxing match, me versus German Dan.
You are just
Hey, but they have weight classes for a reason.
I lied.
This guy's crazy.
I'm gonna flog you.
He wants to send German to heaven, bro.
This guy's crazy.
No,
he said Mike Tyson versus Manny Pacquiao, bro. That's crazy.
Leroy is a sicker, man. Hey, listen, I love to disagree. I'm gonna keep exercising, my ability to disagree when I feel like to disagree. Now, all things serious. I think with Ramsey, I got to a stage where I just felt like he was getting away with making mistakes, and people were just accepting them. And I kind of felt like that for like quite a while. Like he was. Like we would concede a goal, we would be completely in control of the game, concede a goal through like a random shot. I'm like, he should be saving that, and people would disagree with it. And when you keep building up this kind of feeling of like, oh, we conceded another goal, I think he should be doing better than that. And that's how I kind of felt towards Ramsdale. I think for the first 6 months, his kicking was unbelievable. I think then it kind of dropped off, and I think the weaknesses in the shot stopping became more apparent. I think there was a number of games. I think the Burnley game, then the Liverpool game, and the Carling Cup, where he threw games for us, in my opinion. And also Newcastle, I think he was just hoofing the ball when the game that we lost, the crunch game. There's performances where I just felt like he's cost us, but he never came under the microscope like you think someone could. Like Raya is coming under the microscope now. But when Raya came in, I didn't know much about him. I just know, I see the percentages. I've seen us play Brentford a couple of times. He's looked decent against us when we played against them. He's looked decent against City. He looked like a keeper that's more accomplished. Since he's come in, he's definitely looked very, very shaky. I can only call it how I see it. He's looked shaky. He's made errors where you think he shouldn't be making errors. And I'm trying to understand, and I'm looking at the data, and I'm looking also at what I'm seeing on, and when we're watching the games, and I'm thinking his activity is a lot higher than Ramsdale's. So I think like in situations where, when you're looking at things like his pass accuracy or his long ball accuracy, like Raya is trying to pick every pass essentially. Every pass he's picking it, whereas Ramsdale is picking a couple of passes, he's hoofing the rest. So like that's gonna affect the numbers, right? And he's got less activity when Ramsdale's in goal. He's not really playing like an outfield player, which is Raya is trying to do. So I appreciate and I understand that with this level of activity and then the risk that he's taken continuously, that more mistakes will happen. But I just simply feel his execution has not been good enough on a few occasions. If the ball's going out wide and he's like trying to pick someone and it's off the pitch, that's not a bad thing for me. It's about the passes that he's playing in field that are risky, where I feel like he needs to execute them better, or simply try go longer. On the pass, I think that's where I have a real criticism of him. And I don't know how you can objectively watch the games and not feel like he's putting the team under pressure with some of his decisions. But then I look at it and feel like Arteta is forcing him to play this way. If he is not playing this way, his chain could get snatched as well. So for Raya, I think he needs to up his execution, or he's going to face a similar fate that Ramsdale is facing, because I don't think Ramsdale is coming back in. This is not a metrocosm. It's not a thing about players having the same opportunity. This is not a meritocratic situation. It's not. It's about Arteta picking someone that he thinks is going to execute his game plan. He's given Ramsdale enough, and he's given Ramsdale ample opportunity to do that. Ramsdale was doing interviews saying, we found the middle ground. How do you think you're finding the middle ground with a guy that is ex, he's ex guys that are 10 times the footballers that you are, like Ozil and the Aubameyangs, people that have led this football club for periods of time. They weren't doing certain things that he wanted them to do, and he said, yeah, you guys have to go. You're just some goalkeeper. What do you mean middle ground? You'll either carry out the game plan that the manager wants and try execute it well, which is what Raya is trying to do, which is why I don't have a bone to pick with him on that. But the execution has to be better. I think that's what we got to focus on. execution, because Ramsdale is not doing what he's supposed to do, and for a period of time he's made mistakes that have cost us as well. So I don't think he deserves an opportunity back just yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's fair play. And one thing that I do like, this is the Yadar coming out in me, is that Raya's not really doing much talking either. He's trying to just do all of his talking on the pitch, which I quite appreciate, because for me, the worst thing was when I see Ramsdale chuck something in his net, and then the next week I see him on Ben Foster's podcast having a laugh and a joke and that. And I'm like, big man, you cost us 3 points the other week because you're looking at a pigeon or something like that on the pitch. Yeah. And now you're having a bubble about, our goalkeeping position, middle ground, all of this, man. Shut up and play and focus on your game, to me. So I do.
Yeah.
So I do. Yeah, go on, Jem. Go on.
Sorry for interrupting me. I just kind of feel like you about that. I feel like he actually needs to hold it for a bit. Like, he can't just get his way back in this easily, because he actually needs to hold that for a bit, man.
Tell him I've got some written in for him now. He needs to roll through, man. He needs to roll through, man. I'm sorry.
You're trying to get him bagged. You're trying to get him bagged like Pogba, yeah?
Listen, I've got something for him, man. Trust me. Like, he needs to roll through, man, because that attention span ain't normal.
Well, he's definitely got something wrong with him, man. The guy is crazy, bro.
Yeah, boy. Look,
Dr. Leroy, when I'm seeing man do that, like when the keepers do that like double jump to prepare. They're doing a double jump to prepare, and then he's turning around looking at the fans, and the ball is on the 18-yard box, and then he's turning around to the ball. Are you crazy?
What was it? I think it was it Brentford? He made that mad save, and then the ball wasn't even cleared yet, and the man turned around to give it to the crowd. I was like, "Yo, chill out, bro. Chill out, man." You see, this is why his dad has got a high blood pressure, bro. I'm telling you.
Well, what are you saying? He's giving his own dad high blood pressure. Yeah.
Bro, both of them need to roll through. I will do them a 2-for-1 deal. I swear to God.
Okay, so let's move on to the Sevilla match as well, because we haven't really spoken about that either. So I thought this was.
I've got a quick question before we go to Sevilla on the Chelsea game. Do you guys think Chelsea fans are buying hope? Like, they're buying hope off a game that they could have lost, and if they're serious, they should have won. They're just buying hope. Let's have a discussion about that.
They're in the mud, and I, to be honest, some people who I think know ball, I don't really know them. I'm quite disappointed, because if that's a good performance for you as a club, then you are more in the mud than I ever realized, ever. Because they did pretty much fuck all apart from a mid-block counter-attack like a shit team. They got a goal from a penalty, which was a shit header, which was going wide, and a lucky, not even a deflected, a lucky accident.
Yeah.
After that, so they created what I think was 1.3 XG or something like that.
They had the Cole Palmer chance as well.
Yeah, but they created 1.3 XG or something like that, and 0.75 of that was a pen. They created all. They just managed, for good fortune, they managed to be 2-0 up after not particularly playing well. Most of their good play came from their industry and destruction in midfield and ability to close spaces by playing in mid-block. What did you do as a team? I'm sorry, that is not a good performance. And if they think that's a good performance and they quote unquote bust us, I do not know that club's in the mud and they're not coming back for a long time. So, boy.
Yeah, I think it's really important to watch matches back. Is one of the things that I will say to that, because obviously at the time you're watching live, there's a lot of things on the line as well. There's emotions and that affects how you view the game. So basically, I came out of that, I was obviously buzzing with the win, but end of the first half really frustrated. I think up to like 60-70 minutes really wasn't really happy with the performance, and I think. It was fair to say that the feeling coming out of that game is that, Chelsea were the better team. Arsenal sort of smashed and grabbed it kind of thing. And I don't really have a problem with someone having that opinion. But then if you watch it on rewatch, now you know the result, you know the events that have happened in the game. You can watch it cold kind of thing. you pick up, you watch certain things. So like the Cucurella versus Saka, I think is a very good example of how emotions can sway how you're viewing what's actually happening on the pitch, right? Because I watched this first half, I think Cucurella does do well against Saka, but for me, it's because the ref is a blow for fouls that are clear fouls on Cucurella versus Saka. And then obviously there was a few that Cucurella did get the better of him. I think he nicked one through Saka's legs, this, that, and the other. I think even one nasty kick from Cucurella was when they were even reviewing the pen. So we didn't get a free kick from that situation. He didn't get a card because that's how the game was broken down for them to review the pen. The pen was given, etc. And so I think because of that, we didn't really get to build momentum. But then if you watch the second half, every single duel that they had, Saka came out on top. Every single one. I was making notes when I was doing it because I was like, nah, I really thought Saka was quite good in the second half, but people are telling me I'm mad for saying that. But I watch it again and literally I've got it there with the minutes, everything. If anyone wants to see, I can send that to them as well. Yeah. So it's like I watch and the discourse is that Cucurella had a great game against Saka, but I'm like, look, he actually didn't. If you watch this game, second half, he couldn't get near him. He couldn't touch him. He got put on the yellow card, gave away 3 fouls on him, and he got twisted up like 3-4 times as well. So, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, yeah, guys, I think maybe you're high, you're 2-0 up, this, that, and the other. Your players are winning tackles. But if you watch it, any chance that he made, it was basically a long ball or a lung busting run from Raheem Sterling in behind. He got shepherded out most of the time. And I think there's maybe 2 or 3 times where they played through us in that second half. But other than that, they didn't really do much in the game. And so I'm not going to, sort of say, you can't feel X, Y, Z about your team, because I think Chelsea are a decent team. I don't think they're a good team yet, but I think they're progressing because last season was a true horror season for them. Like there's no getting around it. Like when you look at a home record and you've won 1 game in 11 at Stamford Bridge, like that is shockingly bad. Do you know what I mean? So, they can take whatever they want from that game. But for me, I think they still have a few ways to go before they can start picking up points consistently every week.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I just kind of felt like the discourse on the timeline didn't quite match what I felt like I watched. So I just wanted to, have a quick chat about that because I felt similar to you guys. I remember watching that second half. I watched it back as well, watching it live, thinking Saka is cooking this guy, and then full time seeing people saying he got locked up, and like he's cooked this guy the second half. We've actually played badly, and we scored 2 legitimate goals. We should have had a penalty as well. That apology ain't going to do a fucking thing for us. So we take it forward. Let's talk about the Sevilla game, I guess.
Yeah. So I did want to touch on the Sevilla game because we were having a bit of a debate about this, heated, as it always is in the group chat, around the performance. So Seun, I'll bring you into the conversation. Just general thoughts around how you think we did against Seville. We're now top of the Champions League group, 6 points. Every other team keeps drawing, which is pretty good for us. It means that we might be able to qualify early despite losing to Lens last time out. But yeah, how do you feel about that performance?
Yeah, when you look at Sevilla's home record over the last decade, I think they've only lost a few times. So it was always going to be a tough game to go there and win. So I'm happy we got the win. I saw that if we win our next 2 Champions League games, which are both at home, so Sevilla and then Lens, we win the group basically. So I think that's probably going to be the aim to win the next 2, top the group, and then the last one will be a dead rubber, hopefully. I think overall, we, especially because I watched the game back this afternoon actually, and the first 65 minutes, we actually, I think Sevilla only had like 2 free shots on goal in the whole, like the first 65 minutes. So, to your point about sometimes when you watch stuff back without emotion, they really didn't have anything. And I think we did control the game quite well. I think, again, back to the initial conversation we had right at the start where Leroy was talking about midfield, I do think that is still a bit of an issue. but I think there was a concerted effort again to be a bit slower, quiet in the crowd. If you know the Sevilla crowd, Sevilla probably, I think they've said that's like the most atmospheric team in Spain. So like it's one of those where, especially when you go away to big grounds, you want to keep the crowd quiet. And I think we did for the most part. We had that Gabriel Martinelli chance early on, which I think he maybe could have taken it round the keeper, which he did do later on in the half of his goal. I think Tomiyasu had a chance, Gabriel Jesus had a chance. So it was controlled without maybe being overly incisive and overly threatening, which is something we still want to see improve over the next few weeks and months as well. So but yeah, overall a good win. I thought Jesus was the best player on the pitch for me, offensively anyway. So like his turn to set up Martinelli was crazy, and then his finish in the second half was sick, but it also pissed me off because I'm like, bro, why can't you do that all the time? Do you know what I mean? I saw he's got 14 in his last 17 starts in the Champions League with like 4 assists. So I'm like, carry that over to the Prem, my guy, please. We need that. But yeah, no, I thought overall first 65 minutes was really well managed. And then I think it was actually him, funnily enough, that switched off from the corner that they scored. We don't really concede from corners, which is annoying. And then, for the last 20-25 minutes, it was about managing the game out, which I think we did well to an extent as well. We didn't give them much. It would have been nice to have some pace in transition, and that's probably another evolution we can talk about when, cool, every team's going to have their, I don't think we were going to go through that game without conceding any chances, without being under pressure for a little bit of the game. That's fine. So that's game state, but you still want to carry a threat later on in games, and I think that's an evolution I'd like to see next, rather than just trying to contain. But most important thing was to win. So we've come through, Chelsea, City, Sevilla, taken 7 points. So I can't be too mad, even though obviously I'd like to see a bit more from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, fair play, right? So there are a couple of performances that I do want to touch on individually in this game. I agree with you. I think Jesus was really good in this. And, one of the things that I do like about the Champions League is that you seem to get a bit more space than you do in any of the league games. Like even the first goal, I can't remember the last time, we've had an opportunity like that in the first half of any game against anyone for Martinelli to run through clean on goal. I think the only times that happen is when I think Brighton, maybe Aston Villa as well, where they're really, really pushing for, an equaliser or a winner or something like that. And you get that space. But otherwise, Champions League, it seems that teams are a bit more open. They are all quote unquote good teams, so they try and play their football. And I think what we showed is that, I think especially that first sort of 15 minutes of the second half, is that if you open up to give us space, I still think that this team can really cook you, because after it went to 2-0, I don't know about you guys, but I felt like, this could end up being, something of a big scoreline. But obviously they got their goal, and the game state changed a little bit. So Ash has made a good point. So this was the first individual performance that I did want to touch on, was Tomiyasu, who I think has been playing well now for a few games. I think Brentford stands out to me, where he played at centre back, came on at left back, obviously against Man City, had a crucial role in the winning goal there, and then played left back in this game. Came on at halftime against Chelsea, and I think was pretty good, and then started this game. And I think he was probably, after Jesus, probably our best player on the day. I think there was an excellent pass from him on the left-hand side over the top to Jesus for that first Martinelli chance in the first half. And, where do you guys stand now on who should be the starting left back going forward, given Tommy's form? I'll go to you, Dr. Leroy.
For me, absolutely no doubt that Zinchenko is still the starting left back. But I want to start moving away from these starting 11s, because that's the whole thing. We need to build a squad. So it's depending on the game. So if we're playing Liverpool away, I would like to see Tomiyasu start. If we are this weekend playing Sheffield United at home, I would like to see Zinchenko start. It really depends on the lineup of what the game is, what kind of game it's going to be. Is it going to be a tight game? Is it a big game? Is there big stakes on the line? What the opposition strengths are? Are they? Is it a game for people with duels? Is it a game with runners? Or is it a game we're going to have all of the ball? It really depends on what's happening for me. But, I mean, Zinchenko needs to... So one thing I don't like about Zinchenko, even though I do rate his bravery, and I rate that he is one of the only people in the team, especially without Partey, that's willing to really break lines and try things, he is a very complacent footballer. It annoys me. And sometimes he's liable to take the piss. He needs to kind of cut that out of his game. Because some of the things he tries, I'm thinking, this is just outrageous and this is just lazy and you're getting really complacent here. I know you're good technically, but you've got to switch on. But overall, I feel like courses for courses, but the majority of games Zinchenko is going to play, because the majority of games I feel that we are going to have the ball, we are going to be the team in the ascendancy, and we're going to need him to break down the opposition.
Yeah, fair play. Anything you don't want to add to that?
No, I actually agree, Leroy.
Fuck you, man.
Yeah, so next performance that I want to touch on is Martin Odegaard, right? So I think he is in a bit of a slump, to say the least, right? To say the least. So
now, Kings, why are you smiling so much, bro? What's going on?
Can I just say, yeah, if any of the ops are tuned in, this is your time to leave, because I do not want to have, you know, when you got like family round, but you have to have a like inner family conversation and you close the door. Yeah. We need to close the door right now.
We need to clip this bit out, because I know this is going to be looking to inject.
Clip this bit out, and this is only available to patrons. Yeah. But yeah, so he's in a bit of a slump. You know, I think one thing, he never ever really comes back from international break and plays well. It always seems to take him 2 to 3 games to play his way into form. I don't know what that's about. I don't know what they feed him when he goes to Norway camp, you know. But I think even before then, he's kind of struggling to really have the same, I guess, influence on games that we saw last season, right? So I think last season he was really the hub of everything that we were doing going forward. You know, everything was sort of the archetypal playmaker. You pass the ball to him, he's telling you when to run, he's finding you, and the game just seemed to flow through him. Whereas this season, we're not really getting that same influence that, you know, he's getting the ball, he's trying stuff. I think he is still trying stuff, but it's just not really quite coming off for him. So, you know, where do you guys stand on Odegaard? Do you think this is something that, you know, he needs to play his way through, or are you considering, you know, sitting him down for a couple of games here and there and then seeing if that can get something out of him? But yeah, German, you're off mute, so I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think I don't think I trust the alternatives enough on the right hand side to now take him out. I think I would give him maybe 1 or 2 more games before I'd look into starting someone else, because, you know, benching him, I think, is quite the statement. And at this moment in time, the team is not suffering per se. We're winning games or drawing games. We're not losing games. Apart from the Lons game, we haven't lost a game this season. So the team is not particularly suffering. And so I think for now we can still keep him in there, and I'm hoping for him to play through this patch. I just had a quick look to see how he started the season last year, and he scored 2 in the game against Bournemouth. I believe he didn't play that well in that game. I remember that game thinking, Odegaard didn't play that well, and he scored 2, and then he scored in the Fulham game right after, and then he didn't really get cooking until like mid-November. And I remember when we first got him as well, that you know, people were onto him when he got signed for the first sort of 3 months of the season. He didn't really start cooking in this first season until that United away game, I believe it was Everton. I think it was after the Everton game. We played United away. He started playing. So I think maybe he's one of these players that just gets cooking a bit slower than others. Because I do feel like players do go through periods. where they just they play better than and some other players. So, for example, Gabby Jesus, I feel like when he was at City, he always ended the season quite strongly. I feel like Martinelli also, goes through like a very hot streak. Like at least one part of the season, he goes through a hot streak. Even when he was not playing as many games, he would have like a very hot period and a bit more colder. So I feel like not everyone is Saka, who's consistently, good and decisive. Even when people saying Saka didn't have that good of a game, you watch the game back, like all of us do it, right? You watch it back and like actually he was pretty good still. So I feel like I don't think we're overblowing his poor form. I definitely think it's poorer than last year. And it's visibly poor, and it's probably exasperated by the issues that Leroy talked about earlier, where we are just not getting the ball into into the half space as much, and we are just as a football team not as potent because some players are missing. We don't have as much verticality as Seun said, but I would give him another 2-3 games. It is, however, very poor at the moment. I think he lacks the execution and bravery at the moment. But I need to see how he gets it going in the next couple of games. Otherwise, you have to look at it and say, Smith Rowe, he should be getting a chance. Or Vieira should be getting a chance. We have alternatives. It's not like we don't. I just feel like we know what Odegaard can do, so we'd rather get him to that level sooner rather than later. And I don't really think getting him on the bench is going to achieve that quicker. That's my only.
Because just thinking about that period that you mentioned in the first season, I think he was really bad at the start of that season. And he did get dropped for Lacazette, I believe, who came in and played 10 in the Europa game and in one league game, I think maybe it was against Leicester. And then he came back. He had the game against United where he scored, conceded the late penalty. I was fuming. Sitting in the cold.
I remember you were fuming.
Sitting in the cold at Old Trafford, getting dunked on by the home fans. Yeah, peak, absolutely peak. He scored the match after that Everton away, where we lost Richarlison or Damari Gray, I think, last minute.
Gray, it was Gray.
Damari Gray, and then from Southampton, the game after, he really played. He played really well and sustained some form. So obviously the guy's a top player for me. And so I do back him to get himself back into form, but as you said, we can't underplay it, and it's looking kind of spooky right now. He needs to start upping it ASAP. So final performance, Seun.
Could I sorry, just before you go on to that, could I just say on Odegaard as well? I will make the case for him staying in just because I saw that Zach Teddy made a comment in earlier on where he spoke about automatisms, and I think when we've already lost 2/3 of the midfield from last season, right, and we're talking about issues that we have about build up and how we're struggling, I think then taking out the third part of that and then just changing everything completely, I just think that starts to lengthen the process in terms of what we're talking about trying to be more cohesive, because last season everyone could name to you what the first choice 3 would be, and that was rinsed out every single week, and that allowed them to build chemistry, build that relationship. And I think Arteta's, whether it's by circumstance or choice, we've been more flexible in how we've approached different games this season. But I think that's also led itself to, I think sometimes it's hard to achieve optimum performance when you don't have consistency of team selection. When teams are changing every game and players are in and out, it's hard to build up rhythm, right? Do you know what I mean? So I think at some stage we're going to need to not say be fixated on an 11, but have in our mind whatever that 11 is, or whatever Arteta thinks that 11 is, and let it run for a few games personally for me as well. Because whilst I think it's good to have loads of people involved, you're never going to be able to reach a level of, in my opinion, coherency when you're consistently changing the team. And there's like I said, it's a good thing, by the way, to have like 2-3 changes, and you need it when you're playing like 50-60 games a season, whatever. But we've not had like a time to see like whatever Arteta's first choice team or 11 is, just let it run for a few games. So we're going to need that, in my opinion. So that's why, even though I think I agree with everyone else, I think he's stinking up the pitch. I think we need to probably allow him to play him through. And also, as German said, I don't think the alternatives are as viable personally. So yeah.
Do you know? I think you make a very good point on the synergy and the chemistry part, Sean, because if you know, Partey has been missing, and this is not to excuse Odegaard's performances because he's received the ball in good positions, made nothing out of it and stuff. But you know, Partey and Odegaard have very good chemistry. He finds them with, you know, a lot of regularity. And I think, you know, when you're judging a player's performance, you know, there's not a lot of footballers, I think, even the top footballers that can work in every system and play to the optimum level in every system. I think the parameters that they're within their play and, you know, the players that they're playing with enhance their you know, their level quite a lot, and that's applying to a lot of players. I think, you know, again, Saka for me is an anomaly. I think he can play out either side and cook it up. Do you know what I mean? There's not that many players that do that. I think Odegaard, there is a dependency on, you know, supply, and there's a dependency on who he gets the ball to, how often he gets the ball. Obviously, his own execution right now is not great, but all these things play into his performance. And same way you could apply this to other teams. You know, Rashford is experiencing a slump right now. To see how the way he was playing last season, where he was getting the ball, maybe the way teams were not marking him as much as they are doing. You know, all these things play a part in players' performance. So, whilst you can say someone's thinking, I 100% agree. You know, I was losing my mind in the group chat yesterday, but I tried to, you know, take into context the external factors, you know, because they definitely affect their performance. So let's see if when he gets it together, though.
Yeah, I'm going to get into listeners' questions actually, because there are a few of them that will touch on some of the final points that I wanted to get involved in. So, Lacasse_Stina, Nath, I don't know what is wrong with this guy, but TG in-person football videos next summer. This guy's always trying to get us to film us playing football, man.
What does he want to see?
I honestly don't know, but if you want to watch some of the TG guys play, man, Wanstead Flats 10 a.m. every Saturday, you can find some people there. A few guys have come around. The guys are doing well this season, so you might see a win. Yeah, but let me move swiftly on. So Baitface Nate, he says, if you had to allocate a large percentage on who is to blame for our lack of chance creation, who are you blaming? No fence sitting. And he's given options. So he's got Mikel, Edu, Odegaard, Partey, others.
Do you think we kind of answered that? We said it's like a combination of things.
Yeah.
Oh, if we have to pick the one with the biggest blame, who do you want to pick?
Boy, I'm looking at the guy who was our top chance creator and has created 2 chances, I think, all season, bro. So in like 9 games. So it's not looking good for Martin, but I don't actually believe that. But he's a big factor for me right now.
Why you keep calling him Martin? I don't like that, bro. What are you cooking up over there, Kooks?
That's his name, my guy. That's his name. That's his name. Hey, he's lucky I'm not going back to calling him Ofsted. Yeah, so couple more games like this, man. He's losing that. He's losing that. Okay, so Ribslish, he's asked 2 questions. He said, do we need to upgrade on both our keepers? Also, what the hell was that cameo from Eddie?
Oi, listen, don't piss me off, bruv. Listen, Eddie was taking the absolute piss yesterday night. I cannot believe it, bro. He came on, yeah. I'm sorry. He came on. He saw Rice and Tomiyasu were fighting for their lives, bro. This guy was letting granddad, 50-year-old Sergio Ramos run past him. I couldn't believe it. He came on. I don't think he won a duel. He made like 3-4 fouls, and he just wasn't busting a gut. I was fuming. Like, I was generally, and it made me sick that he was allowed to get away with that too. I think he should be punished for that, 100%. Brother, I'm not even joking. I would leave him on the bench for the next game, 100%. I knew sub.
He was
actually. Jesus might be injured. All right, put Havertz up top next game. I'm trying to see something still.
What was the initial question? It was something about.
Do we need to change both keepers?
Hey, he's killing me, man. He's losing. You're showing your boy's losing it. You know about the keepers. Robert's losing it, man.
Yeah, what can you do, man? What can
But
you do?
I think we have to keep monitoring this. Like, as I said, you can only judge what you see. I tried to provide context for what I think Raya is trying to do, or you following instructions, but his execution is currently shit, man. So, boy, if I have to cook both of them, I will. I have absolutely no problem doing that. So, yeah, let's see how he gets on the next couple of games. But if we have to replace both, man, so be it. And then on the Eddie thing, boy, man, this guy running around like he's signed to Rock Nation. I see him post pictures. He's like a Tommy Hilfiger ambassador. Now, brother, are you going to play football or doing all this other shit? He probably is in the studio with Awobi as well. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'm telling you, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all. So I don't know. I feel like one of the things that made people make a case for him actually used to be his effort, and that kind of has vanished this season. I think initially we saw it a bit, but recently he's running around the pitch like he's scraps or someone. Like, I don't understand. I really don't understand.
Yeah, it's a real weird one to me, man, because I can't lie. It's a very clear line in the sand between his performances pre the first international break and the performances we're getting after. Like, I think this guy got that England call up and he's floating. Like, he's literally
he's on him now.
Bro, do you know when you, like, I don't know about you, man, yeah, but you know when you bag like your first 10 out of 10 team.
Now he's talking.
Hey, now you're talking my language.
What are you saying? He's got Tennessee and Susie Michael in his DMs, yeah?
Bro, yeah. You see what it is, yeah? I remember, I'm not going to go into details, but I remember one night in final year, there was one girl that I've been preying, like, on a couple nights out, this and the other. Yeah, and then finally, like, got into it with her, yeah? Like, we've been dancing on the dance floor a few nights, but I couldn't quite seal the deal in that, yeah? But one time, finally, I managed to seal it, yeah? I was giving her my speech in. They say I was a broke boy at uni as well, so, you know, I weren't buying her no drinks, yeah? But I was giving her my speech and finally managed to bag it, yeah? I promise you, I didn't look at my coursework for a week after that.
Man's going into lectures, yeah. Feeling brand new. Probably didn't shower for 3 days.
Bro, when I tell you, no one could have chatted to me for that like month after that. Yeah. Like, I was honestly, I felt like the biggest man, and I feel like Eddie has been like trying so hard for this England call up as well, because I think Ghana came to chat to him as well a few times. He turned them down because he's backed himself to get this, and I think it's his form is just it's fallen off a cliff. Like, he's literally playing like he's arrived now, you know. So yeah, it's looking kind of peak. And Leroy, I'll let you speak on this one as well, because I know you like Eddie.
I'm so disappointed because Eddie is my guy. I think for a long time I thought, look, Eddie is a good striker. But when Eddie has been playing, one thing, stop smiling, man. Hey, Saturday boxing match, no, you're cool. Me versus German Dan. No. But anyway, man's just literally, he sat there grinning. But the thing about Eddie is he's always worked hard. He's always run himself into the ground. And Eddie, for me, doesn't have stamina issues as such, but he's never been a player with a big engine. So Eddie will run himself into the ground, but you can very much tell, usually after 60 minutes, he's cooked, he's done. He put that effort in. And for me, see Eddie not putting that effort in, that was sort of thinking, nah, man, because you are probably, even though you've got great qualities as a striker, you are probably not quite at the talent level that the rest of your teammates are at. And that's just the fact of the situation. So you need to make up for it, and you need to make sure you're working your socks off and you're training like a beast, playing like a beast, like Arteta said. So coming in and see him fresh, not pressing, was really, really, really disappointing to me. And if he is going to continue in that vein, then we need to be selling him, because you can't be not quite at the talent level and not put in the work. And this is the whole reason I don't want Ivan Toney, which is another debate, because I don't want to see joggers in my team. It's just something that I do not want to see. This team has been created on the foundation of grit and hard work. When we play our best is when Gabriel Jesus is working his socks off. Martinelli, Martinelli played 90 minutes last night. I think it was in the 93rd minute. I see him sprinting at the guy at the touchline to make sure he won the ball. That is what we need from our forwards. And if Eddie's not going to give me that, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. The Ivan Toney thing, I don't want Ivan Toney either. Give me an Ollie Watkins over an Ivan Toney any day. Someone who is going to work their socks off. And if Eddie is not going to do that, then he should not be in the squad, and we should be selling him straight away.
Yeah, fair play. So I've just remembered as well, we had 3 questions sent to the pod beforehand. Shaggy P, shout out him. And he said, we've seen Odegaard struggle after international breaks countless times now, and he always seems to need a couple games to find his form back. With crucial games against Chelsea and Sevilla, how much was Arteta to blame for playing him and not having a plan B against those teams? And I think he means because you can basically predict that Odegaard's not going to play well after international. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that one?
I think we answered that one. But we said we don't think the alternatives, are strong enough, and getting closer to the optimum level for the team is probably better if Odegaard is getting closer to this level. And playing through that might help him. I don't know if you can blame the manager for playing him after international break. He's contracted to Arsenal Football Club just because he's just come back from international break. We got a game to play, man. I don't give a shit if you play Moldova 3 days ago. We're playing Chelsea this weekend. You're the captain of the football club. You need to play. If you're fit, especially. So it's more about Odegaard. Odegaard needs to get it together. I'm pretty sure the manager has very clear expectations of him, and he knows. I think you could tell when he got subbed off as the first sub. Yesterday. Yeah, you could tell he knows he's at the moment not playing well. He's falling short of those expectations. So I think he's pretty aware of that. So let's just see when he gets it together. I wouldn't blame on the manager. I think the manager has actually shown faith in him to get through this patch.
Yeah, agreed. So next question was, the midfield double pivot seems like it's going to be used a lot more this season compared to previously, especially against physically imposing midfields. Is this system going to have any value though without Thomas Partey? Rice Jorginho pivot is very passive and non-progressive. Wouldn't it make more sense to play Zinchenko there and play Tommy at left back?
I mean, we said we always really play with a pivot and build up though, right? Do you know what I mean? Someone's always inverting, someone always drops. And even yesterday, there was a lot of the time where Rice was deeper with Jorginho and you had Tomiyasu who was quite further ahead. But, talking about the point, I think we raised it earlier on when discussing the midfield, right? That, that there aren't enough maybe vertical players within the team, aren't enough good recipients high who can collect it under pressure within central zone. So from what I've seen so far, it needs to be a recruitment issue, especially if Partey's not going to be here long term and Rice is going to be our long-term 6. So in my opinion, there's going to need to be some rejigging of the stuff, unless Havertz miraculously works, which I don't think he's going to in the current iteration of what we're seeing. So he said he planned for, he said Havertz, Odegaard, Rice will look good long term, but then he's got to play it for a while, right, and see it. But every time I've seen it so far, it's not moved me, man. So yeah.
I think on the Zinchenko thing, my main issue of playing Zinchenko in the midfield is like, I don't know if I trust him defensively in the duels. I think with Tomiyasu and Rice there, you do have some very good ball winners on that side. I think with Zinchenko, I probably trust him even less than I do with Jorginho in the ground duels, because I think Jorginho at least has that ability to step in front of someone and intercept, whereas I'm not sure if Zinchenko has those same defensive that the same defensive intelligence, particularly, right? So I worry about Zinchenko defensively if he's ever playing in midfield, but you can probably compensate for that with playing Rice there. But for me, yeah, I think we probably just need a different profile of midfielder if we're going to be playing a double pivot. Thomas Partey and Declan Rice are probably the only two that I would actually like to see in a double pivot, full stop, to be honest, of the midfielders that we have. So, yeah, I think we're probably missing a player in terms of profile on that roster for me. Anything to add, German or Leroy, on that?
I think on the question, the first question was like, he says we've not really had success with that. I disagree, because we've just beaten City with that pivot. We've just beaten Sevilla away from home with that pivot. It is not as I said, it's not the football that we saw last year. It doesn't have the same verticality. It doesn't have the same level of speed of play, same technique. It doesn't, but it's functional for some games. And I think functionality sometimes is underrated. This is a results business still. And if Partey is not there, we need to have solutions to still play and win smaller and bigger games. So I think if he's not there, I'm happy to see that being played, because at least they know what they're doing. It might be safe, it might be slower, but they know what they're doing. There's a game plan there. And if Partey is there, I think that pivot could be. I was very, very encouraged by our performance in the Community Shield. Partey and Rice in the pivot, I was super encouraged by the performance. So Timber was playing. I think Tomiyasu was kind of playing in the role that Timber was playing in that game. So I think we have replacements for some of these players. It's just Partey is a unicorn of a player. If you're looking in world football, how many players can you count on one hand that have the same sort level of technique, same level of verticality, same level of press resistance? You are looking at maybe 3.
Who? Name them.
No, and that's without saying the physical attributes. Like someone like Pedri does have the verticality and the regularity. Those type of players.
Name the 6s. Sorry, my bad.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's. I think the 6s. I really don't see it. Like, people would argue rugby is more carrying as well. I think more than Partey. Partey's verticality is pretty unique. So you can't replace that. Even Zinchenko is playing there. It's not the same.
You're looking at like a Thiago.
You're looking at super technical players that don't actually have the physical defensive
physicality. They're more. There's a lot of like 8s who could be double pivots or play slightly higher up. So like you talked about with Pedri, Locatelli, Bruno G, or
Frankie de Jong or something like
Frankie
that.
de Jong. A lot of those guys. Yeah, but they're not. They're not stick on 6s.
I think he said they're not as good. They're not as good, which I agree with, to be honest. I'm not sure you can get someone in Partey's profile, and that actually leads us to Shaggy's last question, which is that Rice has been impressive since joining in the summer, but it's clear he has a different skill set than what Partey offers as the 6. Can those attributes that Partey has, i.e. press resistance and vertical passes, be coached into Rice, or do we need to change our system, adjust our expectations?
That shit ain't coachable, boy. That shit ain't coachable. That some players have unique abilities. It's like you can't coach. You can maybe help a player way pass better, but they're not gonna have the same way of passes as Mesut Ozil, or Kevin De Bruyne. Those are unique skills, so I don't think it's coachable. I think Rice's game can improve. His game's pretty good, but I don't really think that's coachable.
Yeah, and I think it's what we said earlier, right? It's just gonna necessitate a change in probably what we do in midfield. So again, it's a recruitment issue in terms of the profile. The 8s we just spoke about. I think that's a profile we could definitely acquire, which could help with build up in midfield personally. So someone who could play a bit higher up as an 8, but who could also drop into the pivot next to Rice as a 6 as well. So like a Frankie de Jong, for example, would make sense in that essence, because he's got quite underrated physical attributes. He's a very, very good ball carrier, but also very, very technically proficient. So, but he's not a stick on 6, right? He's an 8. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you can definitely to the second part of the question, right? Like change the system, adjust the expectations, right? Because I think Declan Rice has shown he's clearly a very good number 6. You know, he's clearly that, right? And where you can then maybe compensate for some of Partey's, you know, the lack of his attributes in the team when he's not there, is you have a different type of 8 that plays alongside Declan Rice or next to him, you know, because if you have someone who can give you that press resistance and ability to step through the midfield on the half turn, on the carry a bit more than, you know, sort of what we're seeing, and play deeper, then, you know, I think you're sort of just shifting where the emphasis is in your team, really, and still getting some of the benefit, right? So final couple of questions here. So Count Dracula, he said, is it better to have an overconfident or nervous goalkeeper?
Overconfident, man. I don't want no nervous wreck.
I think this is a setup question because I think he's trying to say Ramsey's overconfident, but I don't think he is. I think he's nervous as well. I prefer having a good goalkeeper. Just be good, man.
Yeah, I feel like this keeping situation is just becoming way more difficult than it needs to be, man. Honestly, I'm just a bit spun by it all, to be honest. But SOSHGN, he says we've got 7 points from City, Chelsea, and Sevilla. Our fans are losing their minds. Is this a definition of suffering from success? I think so as well. Because to me, I think fans are. It's just way tenser watching a lot of these games, you know, because I think people really believe and people really have hope. And then when when you're up against Pep Guardiola, every single point matters, you know, every single one. And, you know, when you see drop points, you see Man City win, your head is going to be in the sky kind of thing. So, you know, I think people need to relax. I think they need to trust in the team as well, a bit more than what they have been doing. Because for me, I think we're a very good team. We're a very good team. And I think if we play to our level, we will be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. I think we've got a really good chance at winning a trophy this season. And I think we need to win a trophy as well, because that will develop more trust. Because, you know, I think if you look at Liverpool fans and whatnot, they back their team. They just believe that their team's going to do stuff. Even when you as an outsider, you're watching the same team, you're like, are you, man, sure? Do you know what I mean? Like this, you're saying a lot of stuff, but they just back their team because their team is kind of delivered a little bit. And I think the team needs to really deliver a little bit before people can now sort of relax, because I think we've not quite achieved anything yet. And I think that's why people are, you know, super tense, because you've not had that joyous moment come at the end of it. So, you know, hopefully this season is the season that changes it.
Yeah, fully agree.
And last question from there's two more. Sorry, there's two more. So Yonko Abs, he says, do you think the players will play into form and this central progression issue will be gone at some point, or the manager has to figure this out somehow?
I think
he's got to earn his money.
Sorry, everyone spoke at the same time. Leroy first.
He's got to earn his money because he needs to figure it out. I don't think we're gonna play this into form. I think there's a fundamental issue, and this is where the manager's got to earn his money. And I mean, don't get me wrong, this happens. Like sometimes, like last season, City were figuring it out. They stumbled across something eventually, and it worked. The good thing is, at least we're picking up points at a good rate, and a rate that we should be doing while we're trying to figure it out. But I don't think that this current thing is going to work, and he's going to have to tinker something. Earn your money. What, 5 million a year? Yeah, bruv, give me 5 million a year. I'll figure it out. Trust me.
No,
German. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I think he has to figure it out. Football is always evolving. You know, we are facing this central progression issue now because of injuries and also because the way teams set up against us. If we're developing a threat that is hurting people in a different way, or teams in a different way, then they're gonna try set up for that, and we can go back to central progression. You know, that's just the way it goes. You just have to keep innovating. That's where it is, and I think Arteta is trying, but you know, not everything is sticking right now. But yeah, he just has to find a way, look for a way.
And Sean,
maybe January can help us with that. You know, depending on who we're grabbing. But yeah, Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't disagree too tough. And I'm not necessarily convinced that the solution, we have it internally at the moment. So I think it's going to be a recruitment thing. Like I said, Jorginho and Partey both on the wrong side of 30. Both, you know, one's not good enough, one has availability issues. So I think next summer is definitely going to be, you know, another key part of the evolution, or how we choose to evolve. Like, do you know what I mean? So, like I said, I've not agreed with how Arteta's done it so far, but the most important thing is just to win. Like you said, we're in the results business of winning. So he's got to find a solution. I'm not convinced we have it inside, unless one of the fringe players just decide to start doing a madness that we haven't seen so far. And I'm not sure. But again, you never know. I think Wenger always used to say, right, young players surprise you. So hopefully someone has like a jump we don't see.
Yeah, I think, you know, I was going to call this question out at the top of the pod, right? Like, is it time to cook for these lot, man? I think, you know, it's and I think it is time for these lot to cook. I think, you know, you look at our fixtures that we've had a lot of tough games, you know, away to Chelsea, Spurs, Man United, City, all at home in the first 9 games. I think that's a lot, personally. Yet to play any of the bottom 3 teams, newly promoted teams, I should say, when others around us have played, you know, sort of 2 or 3 of them. And so I think this is now a time where I think the next big 6 team that we play is December 23rd or something like that against Liverpool. So for me, now it's time for the team to really start showing out and putting a good run of games together, right? Because outside of those top teams, I really feel like we should be like beating most of these teams from week to week. And I think that's what we showed last season, that we have the capability of putting these winning runs together. So, you know, for me, it's time to cook. You know, it's time to cook. And I think the team can really build up some momentum now. So last 2 questions. One from G Theorem. He says, hooked at halftime, dropped on Tuesday. Are we seeing the early signs of Arteta preferring a proper defender left back rather than the playmaker? Or is this simply a case of rewarding Tommy for his good form? Personally, I think there's something behind this. We kind of touched on this. So Sean, you're off mute, so I'll let you tackle this one.
I just think it's a case of Leroy's point earlier, is that certain games require different profiles. So that's not to say, though, that he might not be angry, because he did drag Zinchenko at halftime and he wasn't playing well. So I've got no issue with that. But for me at the moment, when people complain about guys like Zinny and Jesus, until you find better players than them, when they're at their best, they're still key to us, in my opinion. So they have to play. And like we said, Sheffield United at home on Saturday, that's a no-brainer that Zinchenko starts, in my opinion, because you know these guys are going to set up with the nastiest of blocks. They are. You and I both know that, you know, it's going to be nasty. So we need all the ball progression and creativity we can get, man. So yeah, Zinny starts for me. I just think it's, like you said, it's moving to the squad game. People ask for more of a squad game. We get more of a squad game. Then people are upset that we've got a squad game. Do you know what I mean? So it is what it is.
And I also feel like, I think fans are, I don't know, maybe it's just me, I feel like they're overly critical with Zinchenko and Jesus at times, I feel like.
And this, sorry, I'll let you finish. And I've said this, and me and Leroy said this one time as well, is that for some reason it feels like our best players are the ones that get criticized the most, when I don't really understand it, when they're the ones who have elevated us to the level that we're at. So I feel like we should have more grace when they have off games. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? So like, whereas I'm like, you guys don't have the same energy for the ones that are, obviously I get it, you place more expectation on the good players, but still at the same time, they're the best players and they're the ones who have brought us to this level that we're now at. So I think we should give them grace when they maybe don't reach that standard every now and then.
Yeah, especially Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus. I think that summer we missed out on top 4 and we got them 2 and Saliba, and we're a 30 top 4 team. pushing for the title that year. That were the only additions that we had. And to think that people are like so quick to say, yeah, Jesus out and it's like, I don't think you guys are understanding that the level that they brought to this team is very high. And them and Saliba, you can't just. If I'm hearing names like I don't know, there's if even
Tony.
If I'm hearing names like Tony, it's like, you guys really sure he's gonna play? First of all, he's gonna facilitate the same way Jesus plays, allows us to play the same way that Jesus plays, and then you sure the attack is gonna be functioning the same. I just don't feel like.
Nah, it's crack. It can only be crack.
Yeah, I think it's disrespect, to be honest. You're looking at a player and you're like, yeah, he's replaceable. Like, they're not that easy replaceable, some of them. That's what you got to keep in mind. And when we did that, we're replacing players who we thought, they were shit under Emery and, a bit after him. We struggled for a long time until we got some really good players in to even get back to top 4 level. So, take it easy over there. That's all I'm saying.
For real. So last question from Lukey Tyler. He says, with our first 3 performances in the Champions League, how far do you see this team going in the competition?
Hey, man, let me just enjoy game by game, please, man. Please. Please.
We've been at the competition for too long, man. I don't know, like, for me, get at the group, top the group, and then whatever happens from there happens, man. Like,
yeah. I just think with Champions League, it's just a luck of the draw thing as well, man. Like you really can't predict how it's going to go, because fair enough, you can't draw English teams first round of 16, but I think from quarterfinals you can, right? So Man City are there. Imagine you just draw Man City in the quarters, bruv. That's a peak draw, and it could happen, So yeah, it has to be a game by game thing. For me, I know people they're saying, "Oh, bring me Madrid, bring me Bayern, and all of this." My guy, if Besiktas or whoever is there, bring them, man. Like, bring me the easiest
brother,
draw every time.
Brother, you're saying that. I was watching Galatasaray yesterday. I said,
They
wow.
Yeah, give me
I
some.
think people pop on the rate teams in Europe. They're like, Madrid are shit. Barcelona. I'm like, yo, man, if we're playing them, we could get smoked, bro. It's
bro. Fam, they didn't see us get packed, 10-2. I don't want any of that, man. I want easy games as possible. So, boy, we'll just need to see who's in the draws, man. But first thing first, I think you're right. Top the group, and then we go from there, man. But guys, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for the questions. Thanks very much for listening. As I said, leave a 5-star review. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Follow us on all the socials at Touchy Gooners, and we will catch you after Sheffield United at home. So I need Odegaard brace in that game, my guys. I need that. But catch you soon. Peace.
Peace.